Been chatting this with the team there, working out what I want to do when I was 13, and I can't sort of pin it down to a definite thing, but I knew I wanted to do something to do with graphics. I like designing things.
You're at 13 years old and
Yeah.
you're deciding what you want to do with your life, and that's just crazy. And it made me think, actually, this is a really interesting conversation in asking people, or asking the team what they wanted to do when they were 13 and how that compares to where you are now. I mean, obviously, from your point of view, you're the managing director of Eyeweb for 22 years.
I've just been chatting this with the team there, working out what I want to do when I was 13, and I can't sort of pin it down to a definite thing, but I knew I wanted to do something to do with graphics. I like designing things. That's always came naturally to me. I didn't like writing articles or any sort of English things. I really liked design, so that was what I was always into. I could always sort of spot design things that other people had done. Obviously, the internet wasn't really as big a thing back then. Obviously, a totally different world that it is now in sort of design.
We didn't have computers at school, did we?
No, well, I mean, I did, but it was all like BBC Basic stuff, and it was all very low level.
We didn't even have BBCs at my school.
Right.
Maybe a couple, but we didn't have, like, at the minute, schools have ICT suites and stuff like that, don't they? And I think we maybe had like 2 computers at my school.
I remember somebody having to explain to me, probably at the age of 13, how you can spot the difference between a website address and an email. It's like it's got an @ in it if it's an email. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and I still use that today. I've written on the back of my hand. That's definitely an email, that one. So
it's handy.
I think the other thing that's sort of changed that nowadays helps people when they're at the age of 13, 15, 17, deciding what they want to do, is there are courses for all of those things, whereas back then there really wasn't a course for graphic design or sort of web design. So when I eventually got to the stage of going to university, which I totally didn't feel ready for, but it was just the path I was on, I chose a IT computer sciences course.
Right.
And it was actually way more technical than I wanted to do. It was all bus values and how data flies through a computer to get to the screen and all this sort of stuff, and some coding. And I just wanted to do graphics. It was nothing like, but it was the closest thing I could sort of find. And at the time, it just seemed to be the right thing to go to uni. So unfortunately, I didn't complete that first. I just about completed the first year, but it wasn't what I wanted to do at all.
Particularly, and I think particularly when you and I were at school, there was very much this schools pushed you towards university, and that isn't always necessarily the right choice for everybody. Particularly if there isn't a course that is tailored to what you want to do. What did you do at GCSE and A-level?
I did just the basics, maths, English. I just didn't find my sort of calling in what I was doing in A-levels or anything. On the side, I was doing some graphics design for school, so they wanted like a rugby poster to go on a tour, and I would design those like Coral Draw.
Oh my gosh!
Which came on about 15 3.5-inch discs at the time to install it, so all that sort of thing onto those floppy disks. But and then even when I left Sheffield Hallam Uni, I then started at Hull Uni. So my mum was like, "You must go to uni. You must go to uni." And I did about the first 6 months, and I was like, it just isn't grabbing me at all. And then so I came out of Hull Uni, so I'd done a year and a half of basically university without it sort of working. And then took an IT job and was just sort of doing a bit of IT stuff. But then eventually I got a size 9 shoe in my rear from my dad to go to London. Quite sort of like, this is what you're doing, because my sister lived in London at the time. Arrived in London, wanted to do some graphics, and just found a very small design agency, literally a man and wife and me. And both of them were deaf as well. That's a different story. So it made communication very difficult, but it was quite amusing. Just started to get my foot into web design and just really, really enjoyed it. But it wasn't what it is nowadays, with all the tools that you have. It was Dreamweaver or some old tool from years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've heard of Dreamweaver, but I never knew what it was.
And I didn't really know how to code anything, but these tools just sort of let you do it. And I've still got some screenshots of some old websites. I just really found that I enjoyed that sort of that medium of working with something that then appears, you upload something on a computer here, but somehow it appears on a computer over there and, wherever else. Did that for sort of about a year or so, and then got a job at NTL, which is that's still around now, but a TV-based company. And they'd created a company called Premium TV, and they created websites for all the football team, all the National League football team
Oh,
website.
right.
So it was every single football team apart from the Premiership. So we did all of their websites. They created, so this company was called Premium TV, and they created a whole system, and it was forced upon every single team, not in the Premier League, but all the rest of them, to have this same system. I don't know why, what the deal was. It must have been some TV deal. But we ended up creating a framework for all of those. So it was quite great thing at the time. But after about 3 years in London, sort of, I guess the whole in me sort of said you need to go back. So, and I was with my partner at the time, now my wife, but we were a bit like, let's go back to Hull. So we did, and I carried on working for the same website company that I worked for at the beginning, the small website company. Jeremy and his wife, who were, as I say, both deaf, and I carried on working from Hull for them in London. And that lasted about 6 months, and I just felt I needed somebody on my side who could sell, because at the time I was very unconfident, couldn't have client meetings, didn't want to, I could do these designs, but didn't want to present them to anybody. And a friend of mine who ran a company doing financial advice was very good at selling, very confident, so we got together and created, might be out of shot, but Eyeweb at the time. And so he would do all of the selling, and I would do all the behind the scenes stuff. And then just as time went on, many years went on, eventually had the confidence, bought him out, and then we're here today.
And you're doing podcasts
I know, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Slightly different. Still not looking,
you're welcome.
I'm still not looking directly in the camera, but yeah. So I guess my path, it was never quite. I definitely want to be running an agency, doing web design and marketing. But I've just enjoyed watching how it sort of progressed, looking at the team around me, looking at other agencies around me, although I don't do that very much. I quite like just the path that we're taking, and it's sort of grown, especially you can see the marketing side of Eyeweb, how that's changed over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. But I still get to do some graphics now, but obviously I employ Chris, who's just done his 10 years with us, which has been fantastic and still going. And I enjoy getting involved in the graphic side of things, and it's still in me. I still do a lot of graphics for other things.
I do quite a bit of design work outside of work and stuff. And I think that's always quite nice to be able to have something that you're doing as a bit of it's almost like a passion project, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you run the you run and run. No, you don't run, do you? Because you organise.
I've learned the word organise. It's way easier.
It is easier. The South Cave 10K, and you do all the graphics and stuff for that.
Yeah, and I really enjoy that because it's sort of low level, simple stuff. There's no clients as such. It's just we keep the same styling going, and so I really enjoy doing those on a night. And obviously, I had the VW festival before, and I was doing all the graphics for that, but not anymore. So it's just quite nice having those little bits of jobs that I can do in the background and still sort of keep my eye in. And when Chris does designs for clients now, it's quite nice to sort of give him feedback before it goes to the clients. And I think we've got a great level of working together. So I can't produce those things that he does anymore, but I can critique it. And I think we work well together on that level. So I'm still getting my sort of ticking a box of doing some design stuff. A big part of that is looking at it from the customer, from the website visitor's point of view. Yeah. So the client might be saying, I want X, Y, Z, and Chris might be saying something, I might be saying something. But actually, when you look at it from the user's point of view, you might not understand that if it's a complicated website, or there might be 20 other websites that are all very similar in the fact that you've got a high competition. So how do you grab their attention? And I think all those sort of considerations really help us create something that really fits what the client wants and what their users want as well. So
I think it's interesting what you were saying about building those websites for all those football teams. It's really given you quite a wide foundation to build on. You know, from to then what you've gone on to achieve and build yourself.
And I think one particular day, which was near the end of my time at Premium TV with NTL, was they were having these contact forms on the website to gather information. And I was just there as a lowly designer, and they weren't expecting me to do anything above that. But I sort of saw what was going on and had a meeting with them to describe how I would change that user flow through the system, and did a whole presentation on it. And I just really got the buzz from doing that, and thought, well, I'm actually wanting to do a little bit more than just this sort of graphic design. So shortly after that, I moved on and did my own thing. And I feel that was the start of me sort of going, actually, I've got a bit more knowledge than just the design side of things. And I really enjoy that everyone, Eyeweb sort of joins in on that now. So that's sort of where it's come from. And it's been interesting with you saying about this podcast being a video podcast being about thinking about when you're 13, because I've got 2 kids who are over 13, 15 and 18. And Phoebe just got her college results today as well, so that's really good.
Well done, Phoebe.
Yeah, well done, Phoebe. And when they were 13, they'd have no idea, and we wouldn't push them to have an idea. So it's an early age to sort of decide, what to do. Some people just do have an idea at 13, and then they'll say when they're in the career later on, I always knew that I was going to be like Laura saying she wants to be a vet. No, that's not one, but she was so clear at that age. And I guess some people just have an idea at that age, and some people just haven't got a single clue.
It is fascinating, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast and speak to the team, because everybody's experience is so different. Where did you think you'd be when you were 13 years old compared to where you are now? And was that a fairly linear journey, or did it take you to different places?
Yeah, I guess you want me to go into it, yeah?
You might as well, yeah.
It's all right here for, yeah. So, for me, it was pretty linear, to be fair. But that's only because I had a massive interest in design from an early age. I kind of grew up with the internet as it developed.
Yeah, you're a bit younger than me.
A little bit, yeah. I grew up with Pixo and MySpace. Those were two really early social media websites.
I've never heard of Pixo. I've heard of mine. I was never on. Oh, hang on. Was I on MySpace for like 5 seconds?
Yeah. All right.
Literally.
So MySpace is the one people probably heard of. Pixo is probably not. It's kind of the similar thing between each other. But I grew up on those, and I took a heavy interest on the editing and freedom those sites give you. Like, for example, now if you go into Facebook, you can only edit your header, banner, and your avatar and some text updates. But with Pixo and MySpace, back in the day at least, you was able to update like the background graphics. You was able to add different visual elements on the site, like edit the color of the scroll bar wheel and stuff like that. And I took a heavy interest in that at a young age, and I actually made a very competitive coding Pixo/MySpace website where people could go on and grab code snippets that I've created.
Oh, right, okay.
Like graphics or editing, elements of it, and they could
very
go
entrepreneurial of you.
I know, yeah, they could go and paste that. It was actually one of the biggest sites to do it.
Right.
And I partnered with another large editing site, and they changed the password and shut it down. I was very naive at the time.
I have to ask, how old were you at this point?
Oh, it was teenage years. It was 14, 15, 16. I don't know the exact year, but yeah, teenage years. Well, I didn't sell anything. It was just the fun
that's
and
where
the
you made the
freedom
mistake.
and the creativity and stuff of being online, and and then that snowballed into when I was picking what I want to do after secondary school. All my friends went and did A-levels and all these different subjects. And in Hull, at least, we had the option to do a BTEC National Diploma in graphic design at the time.
Okay.
So I actually went ahead and steamrolled through that into university, and then, picked up jobs from here we are now, really.
Because, well, you've been here 10 years now.
10 years, yeah. It's great. It's been a good time here, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you've been here nearly half the life of.
Well, how old is Eyeweb?
22. 22.
22, yeah. So just under half the lifespan of Eyeweb's, yeah. Literally
part of the furniture.
Don't know how I feel about
that. So as you'd already indicated, so it has been pretty linear for you then. That's
pretty
really
much
interesting.
all my life has known design, but I love it. I love the idea of fixing things in the world with visual elements, and I'm lucky enough to have got a job and then develop that into a career, because you look at some people who go to university who steamrollers had as I did in one direction, and they don't end up with a career, and it's just unfortunate. So yeah, I've been very lucky.